Hi there, welcome to the latest episode of my 10-minute moans. And on this episode, I just want to point out some absolute ridiculous claims by Humza Yousaf. This is a guy that just talks and says words that doesn't really mean anything. And over the course of the last couple of days, it's been brought to my attention some ridiculous statements that he's doing, just virtue signalling and trying to get on the right side of a story and just making claims all the time. And I'll not bore you to death about the details of the subject because it's the Horizon Post Office scandal, which I think every single person in Britain is aware of. And there was a bit of a pile-on, rightly so, people getting really angry with it and demanding answers. So I was on Twitter the other day, and one of Scotland's leading advocates, Thomas Leonard Ross Casey, he is well-known advocate. The recent TV programme, The Murder Trial, he was the defence on that programme, so he's a well-known face in Scotland and quite a well-regarded counsel. And I follow Thomas on Twitter because some of the things he talks about is quite good. And he pointed something out to the Twitterati the other day, and it was a story, an article in the Scottish Legal News, which Thomas had kindly linked for the rest of us to have a look at. And in this article, Humza Yousaf, I will make sure I read the verbatim, was quoted as saying, it should not have taken, he would have done this with his hands, where he was saying, I can just picture him standing there, doing this as he does all the time. It should not have taken a television drama to get the government to take action. This is the UK government, right? The Scottish National Party have been asking for action in relation to Horizon and the injustices done to postmasters and sub-postmasters for many years. So he's claiming it shouldn't have taken a TV drama for government. I'm taking it he's having a pop at Westminster here. I don't think he's talking about Holyrood. And he's claiming that the Scottish National Party have been asking for action in relation to Horizon for years. Thomas Leonard Ross, Her Majesty's Counsel, asks on Twitter, or states on Twitter, I'm baffled by the First Minister's quote because around 100 people were prosecuted in Scotland according to COPFS, that's the Crown Office Prosecution Service, and not prosecuted by the Post Office, prosecuted by our Crown Office, and headed by the Lord Advocate, who is a member of the Scottish Cabinet, which is headed by the First Minister. So who exactly were SNP asking for action on Horizon for years? Because they're liable. Now, this is something that I didn't really pick up on, and obviously not being a legal expert like Thomas Leonard Ross. I was like, what's he talking about here? Now, as it happens, if you were a sub-postmaster or postmaster or sub-postmaster in England or Wales, you were actually prosecuted by the Post Office. If you were prosecuted in Scotland, you were prosecuted by the Crown Office, headed by the Lord Advocate, who's a member of the Scottish Cabinet. And there's Humza want to jump on the pile-on and start slagging Westminster, when all along it was his government that were responsible for these cases because they select, now technically the monarch selects the Lord Advocate, but it's on the recommendation of the First Minister of Scotland. So neither monarch's ever refused to put the Lord Advocate in a position that the First Minister had chosen. So it's the First Minister that actually selects who and they're on the Scottish Cabinet. And there he's grandstanding again, talking absolute nonsense, because what he wants to get on the cuddly side of this argument, and everybody else is throwing stones at Westminster, so I'll just get involved with the pile-on. And it turns out he makes an absolute clown of himself by these claims that top legal brains, and this guy Thomas Leonard Ross is a King's Counsel, kind of knows what he's talking about, is baffled by the First Minister's quote. Because the Westminster's not as a legal brain as Thomas Leonard Ross, nor many other people have commented on it with legal knowledge. And just talking absolute waffle. And then I think, I don't know how it came up in First Minister's questions today, but Douglas Ross, he had a pop at him demanding that the Crown Office should be held accountable for their role in the scandal. And Douglas Ross has asked for the Lord Advocate to come in and talk to MSPs about it. And Humza was forced to admit that Scotland's Crown Office has pressing questions to answer over its role on the Horizon Post Office scandal. So yesterday or the day before, Humza was quite happy to apportion blame and ask questions, serious questions of the government, when Westminster government didn't prosecute anybody. The prosecutions in England and Wales were carried out by the Post Office. The prosecutions in Scotland, about 100 of them, were carried out on behalf of the Prosecution Service, which is led by the Lord Advocate, who's in the government's cabinet. And also, some of the people reporting on this at First Minister's Questions pointed out that there was 3 empty seats at First Minister's Questions, as dozens of SNP MSPs dodged the flagship interrogation of the leader. And I know why. Because their ship is sinking. And they're led by a man who is incredibly, I believe, naive. And I don't think he's intelligent enough for the role. And he keeps doing this where the default setting, it doesn't matter the topic. And again, it's proven today in the sort of 6 or 7 minutes that I've been talking to you. His default setting, like the rest of his government, like the rest of his party, like the rest of the cybernats, like the rest of the absolute independence at all cost cult that we have in Scotland, default setting is blame Westminster. Doesn't matter what the question is, doesn't matter what reality is, it's Westminster's fault. And this is just another great example of that rhetoric that it's their cult default setting, I'm afraid. And I'll keep exposing it because I just find it ridiculous. I wish they would just start governing. Now, if Humza was really that upset about how, because I've been aware for 10 years, by the way, that this Horizon system had worked. They stopped prosecuting people 10 years ago, and there were people still to prosecute. So they obviously knew in 2013 that these convictions were probably, fair to assume, they were unsafe. Now, don't let them blame Westminster, because these are devolved powers. They control not only the system, but the Lord Advocate, who's part of their government. So instead of blaming Westminster, you could have done something about this 10 years ago. SNP, Scottish Government, realised 10 years ago that the system that they based these convictions previously on was incorrect. And for 10 years have done nothing. But here's Humza, wants to tweet about, we've seen him tweeting on Humza's account that he was disappointed it took a TV drama to highlight these issues and demanding justice. I kind of agree with you, Humza. Especially when your government, your Lord Advocate, your prosecution service all knew 10 years ago that these convictions were unsafe. And you done nothing until a TV drama came out. So stop talking nonsense. We're not listening to you anymore, and we'll ridicule you and pull you up and point it out publicly every time you do it. Because you and your party deserve no less. However, if you enjoyed this podcast, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more, hit the subscribe button and the notifications. There'll be some recommendations probably in the corner around about here. But most importantly of all, have a great day. Bye now.